Okay, this is episode 1 of me building a Woody. And what you're looking at is my various internet searches, looking for inspiration, potentially looking for a project for many, many years. I've been looking for the last several years, trying to find a good Woody project. And after some searching and seeing some cars that are restorable, I thought, I don't want to make a video where I'm just sanding wood. I want to make a video where I'm really building. And look at this, a beautiful one. This is really, I'm going to save this for real inspiration for what I'm building here. And then this image on Facebook Market kept staring me in the face. This one you're about to see. This was on Facebook Market for about 10 months. And finally, Rob and I went to go look at it. Leave the I-beams, take the Cadillac.
Oh, I thought the piece of the frame fell off. Okay.
Might be. ...1948 Cadillac ambulance with no ambulance, missing the ambulance. Rob, you said it has a Ford motor?
A Ford GAA, I believe.
Because for the war effort.
Sherman tanks.
Sherman tanks, so it was a war effort style
1100
situation.
cubic inches.
Yeah, we don't know if it works at all. Okay, all that information was somewhat incorrect. I was told that by the previous owner. Rob did a little Google search before we got there, but we came in time to find out that this Cadillac Flathead V8 346 engine was used in tanks. I don't know specifically what model, but I'll link this website down below. An engine per side, so they would have 2 of them in it. Nothing's attached, no radiator, no nothing. It's going to be a challenge, but I'm looking for something to put a good Woody on the back, so we make this into a Suburban or something fun. So I got this on Facebook Market. It was only about 10 miles from the house, which made it an easy decision, $1,500. The guy I bought it from knew nothing about it. He buys old cars, and he got this in a auction. He bought a bundle of things in an auction. It came with a few cars, and he didn't know anything about it. And you can see the auction, the lot number in grease pencil on the hood. Knew nothing about it. It has an old registration, so I should be able to register it. This is my first time using my winch to pull a car in the trailer, and we were a little out of whack. And then, good thing the guy had all these I-beams laying around the car, so we were able to use it to get it up on the trailer with no more problems. And just double checking, triple checking, make sure we didn't lose it in the ride. The drive shaft was not attached. The drive shaft is hanging and dangling. It's missing the slip yoke. And in time, you'll see I ended up replacing that. So we're taking it over to the racetrack property just to assess it and to see what type of bad decision I just made. I figured for $1,500, maybe I could just use the hood make a piece of furniture out of the hood or something at the very least. So here we are, just getting it into place at its new home where it's going to live for a few months. This actually was the first week of September 2004 when I went and retrieved this. It's going to sit here for a few months while I figure out what and how we're going to do with it. First order of business was to get the engine unseized. If we can get the engine unseized, we could figure all the other nuts and bolts out. Now you see the drive shaft there. It wasn't connected to the rear axle, and the slip yoke was completely gone. So the first order of business, Rob pulls the heads off. We're going to take a look at the heads and see how bad the pistons are. And once we looked at it, it wasn't honestly that bad. You could see here Rob's pulling the head off. When we get the head off, the pistons aren't so bad. We had been, and so had he, had been soaking it through the spark plug holes. The spark plug were all out of it, so water, oil, grease, leaves, seeds, everything was going inside the heads. But you could see it's not so bad. That's
just
probably diesel fuel we threw in there earlier that day.
Pistons.
And we're really taking a close look at everything. We look at the other side. And we tried a couple of different methods, soaking, and I used the loose drive shaft with the car in gear to try and turn the motor. And I wasn't getting anywhere, and I was checking all stuff online and soaking, kerosene, transmission fluid, everything all mixed together. Kerosene, diesel fuel, transmission fluid, soaking. And after looking for about a month, I found one guy that just said, get an oxygen acetylene torch and heat the block up. And that's what I did. So here you see oxyacetylene, and what I'm using there is a rosebud. I'm heating everything up, the outside, the inside. The oil caught on fire, was burning out through a couple of the holes. And I said, well, if it goes on fire, it goes on fire. So now I'm in the back with a big wrench yanking on the drive shaft, and eventually I started getting some movement, and a little bit of movement leads to more movement, as I always say, and just keep working it. You'll notice some of the valves aren't moving. We got them all loose in time. We had one really bad one, which you'll see down the road in this edit, but here you are. That one valve all the way on the left, you'll notice those two valves aren't moving too much at all, but I was able to get everything freed up ultimately, and there you go. And if the drive shaft was still on the wheels, I probably would have just raised the rear wheels up and spun the wheels to be able to then turn the motor while it was in gear. What do we say? Acorn, not a good sign.
Up the exhaust. Right here. Oh, God. Okay.
Oh. Oh.
Okay. Not too bad, yeah.
Now we started to realize everything is pretty much there, all the important stuff. Obviously don't have a radiator, but here's the fuel pump. In time I came to find a couple of websites where I could just turn that in and get a new one. Just turn that in as the core and get a new one, which I did. I ended up finding Caddy Daddy. Now breaking down the wheels and the hubs and the brakes, nothing was coming apart easily. And once I got the brakes off, once I got the wheels off, we started pulling apart the brakes. This car probably hasn't been used in, I'm going to guess, 40 plus years. Everything is fused together. We weren't able to pull the drums off. We had to pull everything off, take the hub and everything off, and then break it all apart a little bit later, which obviously was no big deal, but you could see. And we packed grease and everything. But just assessing slowly, just attacking all the different systems. And then we got the motor freed, but we realized this one valve was not moving. So one day I dug in, did a couple of YouTube searches. Shout out to Eric, the car guy, on how to remove a valve. But I had to get down in there and take the valve cover off. Once I removed the valve cover, I got in there. I had to crush the valve and get the two little retainer clips off the back of the valve. And now this was the valve that wouldn't move. Typically I should be able to just slide that out with my fingers, but of course it's not moving at all. So I made this attachment for the slide hammer to pull, and then what had come out of the block was the whole entire valve mechanism with the sleeve and everything. And there you can see it up close. And I had to put it in the vise and bang it out with a brass draw pin to get it to come completely out. And there I am using a piece of brass to collect it. I get it out, and it simply was just rusty. It was one of the holes that was open to the air, and it must have just had water in it. Just a lot of condensation built up in these motors that don't get used, in all these different spots that don't have oil in it. So using some Scotch-Brite and an internal wire brush, I'm able to get everything back in, working smoothly. And this was the one holdup. Every time we try to turn the motor over, we kept getting hung up on this one valve, and then when we saw it stay open and not go back, we knew there was a problem. And there it is, moving freely. Now I don't expect this engine to work perfectly. I just want to get it to work. So I'm not looking for perfection. I know I could have probably taken all the valves out, redone all the seats and everything, but I just want to get it to go. I don't plan on driving this across country, and I don't plan on making this a show car. For me, it's a lot about learning. I've never done this. I took the whole valve pack out there, the whole, well, it was in this 4, and then this 4, and then this 4. So I did that whole valve pack out of the inside of the engine the whole time, trying not to drop anything into the engine block. And now this is where there was no starter. There was no starter in the car. I ended up buying another one from Caddy Daddy. And here I'm pulling out all the mouse nests that was in there. Tons of mouse nests from the seat in the car. Now I tackle the interior. Here you see me ripping up the rubber mat that's on the floor. Of course, the floors are rotted through in some spots, but not as bad as I expected. I assumed there would be nothing there. But there's quite a bit of solid flooring left, and I'm probably going to do the old
rat rod concept where I would put license plates on the floor, so I got to collect a bunch of license plates. Be funny if I had all the I Make license plates on the floor. I wouldn't want to use them up there. But here you can see a close-up look of the floor mats and the holes in the floors. But this is not as bad as it looks, considering I'm not making a perfect show car here. I'm not going to replace this material. I don't know if I made it clear. This is going to be a woody wagon, but not by any means perfect. I'm going to leave the rust. I'm going to leave the texture and basically a rat rod woody. I'm really just going for the functionality of it. I'm not trying to make it perfect. And here you see these seats. Again, this was probably either an ambulance or a hearse. But you could see these seats are like a home cushion. They're like a home couch. 1947. Auto insurance. $25. And vacuuming out, there's lots and lots of mouse poop. Interesting thing, I showed you the engine block where the starter would plug in. There was tons of the seat cushion from this couch I just took out, deposited all over the vehicle. So the mice were getting in there and bringing this little puffs of seat felt that you could see there. And they were in the engine block, of course, and then there was tons of it in the ceiling, which you'll see in a few minutes. And at this moment, it really stunk. The car smelled like something died in it, and I could not find the dead mouse. I'm slowly chipping away at each one of the tasks, and the vision is becoming more and more clear to me as I begin to work on it and see what needs to be worked on. And the idea of how I'm going to utilize this cab and integrate it into the rest of the car, the more time I spend with it, the vision becomes more clearer.
And just gunshot it off before. Don't even bother. Oh, there's all the parts that were rattling around.
Oh, when we turned the wheel, there's all kinds of noise coming from inside.
Oh, God.
The pins right off.
Oh.
Ah, the brakes were all
Jesus.
dismantled in there.
Well.
They're not so bad.
And it was just disconnected. Oops. Beauty. Okay, goodbye.
The brake caliper is broken in here.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Catastrophic.
Oh, it's all broken open. Yeah, but we'll get a new one.
Yeah. Easy peasy.
So that's what sends all your power to each spark plug. So when you go,
Oh, the rotor cap.
so yep, so that's your button, then your cap goes on. So as that spins around, the condenser's going to send it. The points will close and send it up through that. So this will come from your key. This is how you turn it on and off. So once you kill power to this, it kills power to the ignition and.
Oh, so you just stuck the spark plug wire straight into the end of
Yeah.
that, because
a
otherwise
ground.
it would just distribute it from there. It doesn't matter.
Yep. So now that that's got a signal, this will tell me if the coil's good. So that thing was popping right.
And that goes to the 12 volt.
Yep.
So let's just give it a shot for camera, see if it works. Whoop. Am I gonna get a shock? I'll probably get a shock, right?
No, you should be right. I just clipped that alligator terminal.
Yeah, I can see it. So that's good. Good news. It's gonna run.
She'll run.
Very nice. This was the weekend of the stained glass class. Kurt Bloom was there, and Dave Doherty. Dave was giving me some engine tips, and Kurt volunteered to cut out the smell. And we all assumed it could be in the headliner, so Kurt volunteered to cut the headliner out. He put on his hazmat suit and he went to work. Kurt Bloom's going to try and find the dead thing.
Take a steady hand.
Oh, Jesus, look at that mouse nest.
What is it?
That's filler from the seat.
You're kidding me.
That's all from the seat. Yeah, that's inside.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine the mice did all that?
They're amazing. You should put them to work and get rid of the row house. Row house. Rob, look how much work they did.
He never learned. He never learned Spanish.
Row house. How do we say it? Row house.
It means red.
Red. Reds. Multiple reds.
Get rid of Robbie Red.
It's a full sinuses, right? It's like going through the sinuses. There's so much more headroom. Did the body not fall out yet?
I don't know. It could be just a bunch of dead babies in there that smell like that.
Oh, like an aisle? I can't wait to see Jimmy cut a cheeseburger in half that night.
And now it's time to try to release the hubs from the brake drums. And the only way without trying to damage the castings is to drill out. And if you notice there, I'm using some anchor lube. That's some pretty good stuff. And now I'm banging out, gently banging out. And then the hubs start to become loose from the brake drums. And then I'm able to actually work on getting the studs completely out. And the only way to get them out was to punch them out. And I left a little bit of hole in the bottom so that they would get loosed up from the knurling and then pop down. And then here you see me putting new studs in that I just got at Napa Auto Supply. And I'm just putting them in place and just hand tightening the bolts on there just to keep them from popping out. And then on the vise, I'm able to just bang them in with a sledgehammer. It really was a job for the hydraulic press or the arbor press, but frankly, it was about 0 degrees out and there was ice and snow, so I just wanted to stay in the shop, stay comfortable. Since this is such a daunting project and we're waiting on engine parts and various bits and pieces to come in the mail, I started working on the actual back and the body. And here you see cutting up some 3x3 angle iron. These are going to get mounted right to the frame of the actual car. There's mounting spots that were basically unused from this previous life. It apparently had some sort of flatbed. That's why you watched me cut all that extraneous metal off the back. It was all supporting some flatbed. That was just something I guessed because it had all these flat areas, and based on the evidence of the welding, I assumed somebody put a flatbed on there. And here I'm making these body mounts, so I'm going to put these in place on the actual car with a rubber grommet in between them, and then I'm going to begin to build the foundation on top of that. And these steel mounts and the steel tubing and the framework that's going to get mounted and welded onto this is going to support all the wood and all the woodwork that's going to go on above it. And the process begins by putting these mounting brackets that I just fabricated onto the actual body. And I got a 3/4 inch bolt, grade 8 bolt with a rubber grommet in between. And then I start to piece by piece weld scrap 2x2s and 1.5 by 1.5s in place to slowly start to build what I'm guessing would be there. This is all going to be steel, and then on top of that, it's going to be all recycled wood. And so it's a slow process of me making these decisions as I go, making sure everything's in a fair curve. Everything seems like it's going to look good. Obviously, if it looks straight, it is straight, but I do also need to contend with a twisted frame. This frame is slightly twisted, And who knows if we got the jacks on right. I assume they are. I'm using a level. The X is level, but as I go towards the back of the car, it begins to become unlevel, which indicates that it could potentially be twisted. But everything I do on the left side, I do on the right side, and I'm trying to use the body itself, the frame, to give me lots of reference points. I'm using a ruler to measure off this many inches off of this part of the frame, try and do the same thing on the other side. But I'm jumping back and forth, and the whole time I'm just being conscientious of what's going to come next. And I went to Universal Auto Parts in Albany. Art Clement sent me up there, and they rebuilt the drive shaft for me. It was a little pricey. It was $1,300 and change to have this whole drive shaft rebuilt. I just assumed they would just weld on an end, and they said, no, this one's too beat up. It was out of balance. It literally was bent, and I crushed it a little bit trying to get the engine unseized. So I said, all right, let's just go for a new one. So there's lots of new parts in this car, even though it's basically an art car. And it's for content. It is going to be,
I'll tighten that up in a minute, but that's it.
Pretty healthy. There you can see all the new parts, and of course the big main drive shaft was rebuilt and balanced, and there's the slip yoke. And it fit right in, no problem whatsoever. Here you can see a lot of the new brake parts going in. When I got the car, there was no slip yoke. It was just drive shaft with not connected. Now we're good.
Yowza. No. Oh, Jesus. Don't cut the spring. That's it.
There.
There
All the hubs have new lug nuts and studs, and now they're all getting packed with grease. This is Rob putting all the grease into the bearings. All the bearings are in good shape. At this point, like I said, I'm not going to take this thing too far on the highway, but all the bearings are in good shape. Nothing needed to be replaced. They just needed to be cleaned and packed. And ultimately, this car, I feel, has about, it says 60, 70,000 miles on the odometer. It could be flipped. There is some wear and tear, but overall, the parts that weren't messed with or completely rusted are in really good shape, which was a large majority of the engine and the drive system. The transmission feels okay, but we won't know until we drive the car. But when you do shift it, everything seems to work. And it does go into gear and it does go into neutral, but only time will tell what the real problem is. And here you can see there's a new brake cylinder, new master cylinder, of course a new carburetor. And like I said, these parts are not that expensive when you turn in the old one. Jumping around here, you see the body mounts at the very back, and it's an up-close view of the rubber grommet between with the bolts in place, and that's going to be the tail end of the flooring parts. It's just a little montage of me just freestyling and putting in these pieces here and there. And I'm working on scraps, pieces I cut off of a previous install. I'm just working my way up and over the rear axle, and I'm envisioning how the floor is going to look. By the end of this video, only just the framework will be done. I'll start the woodwork in episode 2. And here I am just making sure everything's level as I go, and I'm overshooting it. So I'm always welding on more than I need so that I could make a decision where the next one's going to be, and then I cut that loose, and then I weld to that. You sure about that? You sure about that?
What?
I don't know. I'm just asking if you're sure about it. You sure it's in the right direction?
Yes, sir. The throttly poo is possibly going the wrong way.
The framework is basically done. That's going to carry the back half of the car. I do need to add some more here and there as needed. I also need to potentially level it a little bit more once I'm able to get a faraway view of the car and then get it on its tires. But here is an up-close look of the wood. This is all wood from the graveyard house, and it's going to become the entire back of this car. And I'm happy to be able to recycle this wood. I'm glad I didn't burn it when I had the chance.
So maybe. Don't remember where anything goes. This one. There.
It's good. The lobe's in the correct spot. Feels right.
The fact that the bolts can even. Wow. What are you supposed to do with that?
That thing must make noise.
No, wait, that's a lever? No, look. Doesn't that do something? No, is it? Oh. That's so fucking weird. You want to take it out?
Maybe we should. I don't know.
I don't want to leave it in there. Like mini bolt cutters?
The hell is that?
Move it down and snap it again.
Is there a piece of it?
Do I just keep breaking it?
Yeah, we're committed now.
Yeah, I guess so.
We found this cast iron, must have been a molding sprue stuck inside of the water jacket of the head. We just broke it out. We didn't know what it was. It didn't seem to be doing anything, so we broke it out. And now you see the brake cylinder. This is the part that spreads the brake shoes. And I had to mimic one. So we have a piece of titanium, so I'm making it out of a piece of titanium here. Just doing some simple lathe work. And then I have to take it over to the Bridgeport. And slow and steady, I make all my passes again using the anchor lube when I can. And then that cuts down deep enough to be able to grab the brake shoe. It's always easy to copy a piece that you already have reference of. You might have seen that when we took apart the rear wheel earlier. It was broken in half. So now we have an original and a copy. Perfect. And then what is the actual model?
It's a commercial chassis. 42 to 75 series. This is a 67 series Cadillac, based on the fenders and hood and the grill and everything. All the engine sizes are normal. We have a 163-inch wheelbase, which is the center front hub to the center rear hub. So, right. The big one.
And it was, in time I realized it's a Miller. It was turned into a hearse from the Miller company. And somewhere along the line, somebody cut the back off. We don't know why. But that's what it was. It was a hearse, commercial chassis. After a lot of cleaning to the internal parts of the engine, we're putting the head back on. We left the rust because we wanted to give it a patina of a rat rod. I wanted it to feel like it just rolled out of a junkyard, but it still works perfectly. So the texture is all the old rust and the patina. I didn't want to get rid of that. It's nice, though, occasionally when we clean the engine off, you see the original green paint. This engine was green. You could see if you do some Google searches, this Cadillac Flathead. And you can see all the bolts that keep that head on. So many bolts. Learned a lot about Cadillac Flatheads, which I did not know. I did not even know that Cadillac made a Flathead. That's why when we first saw it, the guy who owned it thought that it was a Ford engine. He didn't even do any research. He just said, oh, a Flathead must be from a Ford. And then earlier you saw us reaming out the holes for the spark plugs. That's because all these holes were open to the air. There were no spark plugs in the car when we got it, so who knows how many years those spark plug holes were open to the air. But by just reaming them out with a firm wire brush, we're able to get them all nice and choochy. And then we're just getting the spark plug snugged in. Rob thinks this is the wiring order. but it's in the manual. But we're not really ready to run it. We're just playing around. Hold on. All right, let's see. We got everything's kind of.
Everything's just barely connected enough. That's.
And we got a quart of oil in there. Let's see. Yep. You see it?
Yep. Nice hot spark. Yeah. Gapped properly. Good to go. Let's get a little fill up the bowl, I suppose.
Oh, come on. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough.
Yeah?
That's enough. Yeah.
Remember when Rob had eyebrows?
Keep a rag handy so you could stuff it in case. I know there's not much to fire up, but.
Oh, no, there's a chance.
Yeah.
We're in the wrong firing order, so.
What?
It's making combustion in some of the cylinders. There is actual exhaust coming out.
There's gas leaking out of the bottom of the carburetor.
Oh, good.
Yeah. All right. One step closer. One more chug.
One more time.
Just to end the vid. I'm smelling a little exhaust.
Yeah.
All right. To be continued.
To be continued.